Tonight we have the Melbourne premiere or preview of Snow White, Disney's latest version of the classic fairy tale, but it's a woke reimagining. And Douglas, you wrote in the New York Post that Disney seems to be quietly terrified of how this project will fare, so much so that they are pretty much hiding the star of the movie, Rachel Zegler, and if you watch this you'll understand why.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Oh gosh, Douglas, this remake is reportedly to have cost more than $200 million, and Disney seemed too scared to properly promote this movie.
Snow White is scheduled to hit theaters on March 21, 2025. But reports suggest that Rachel Zegler's role in the film has been reduced or altered significantly after months of backlash. It appears Disney is quietly distancing itself from the actress following a series of controversies that have overshadowed the film and her career. For over a year, Zegler has been one of Hollywood's most polarizing figures. She openly mocked the original Snow White, calling the prince a stalker, and admitting that she never liked the classic 1937 film. Instead of trying to win over fans, Zegler made things worse by complaining about her salary, advocating for feminist rewrites of the story, and attacking critics who disagreed with her views. When Disney released the first trailer for Snow White, the response was overwhelming negative, with the trailer accumulating over 1 million dislikes. Fans weren't just rejecting the changes made to the film, they were rejecting Zegler herself. Behind the scenes, Disney executives were reportedly panicking. The movie's budget had already skyrocketed past $300 million, and massive reshoots were ordered to address growing concerns. Now, insiders are saying that Zegler's role has been cut back or altered, suggesting that Disney is taking drastic steps to salvage the film's reputation. This is not just a Snow White issue. Zegler was also supposed to play a major role in the sequel to the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. However, the studio decided to skip ahead in the timeline for the next film, effectively leaving her character behind. Hollywood seems to be moving on from Rachel Zegler, but the big question is, why now? Is Disney trying to fix a potential disaster, or is it simply cutting its losses? The massive reshoots and changes to Zegler's role indicate that Disney is trying to recover from the controversies that have clouded the film's release. But whether these efforts will be enough to turn things around remains to be seen.
No, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
A prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap, great dude.
Yep.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut, who knows? She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. It's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
Have you ever been to that Snow White ride?
I watched it once, and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again.
Disneyland?
I get stopped for photos every time I'm online for the Snow White ride, and it is I have to pretend like, oh God, oh crazy that we're in front of this.
The secret, because if he's saying we're dopey, there's kind of, it's not like there's a whole bunch of dopies it could have been.
No, not many.
Is it difficult to do live action with the animation?
It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's amazingly rewarding when you see it and when you complete it to say that this is a thing that we did, but you basically do 3 different versions of every scene. You do one with humans in the space, so you're having an emotional connection with somebody, and then you do it with puppets, in our case, for Dopey and Grumpy and these
like
iconic
hand puppets,
characters. They were full, like, I say Julie Taymor-esque because if you've seen like The Lion King on Broadway, anything that Julie Taymor's done, it's that kind of puppetry, where they're like attached to the feet of the puppeteer and then moved around by with their hands, for all of those iconic characters. And then you do what's called a clean pass, so to do like a clean plate, where it's essentially me doing Whistle While You Work to nobody, dancing and singing. And the thing you have to do with props, because they need to turn the prop into a CG prop and put it into the CG character's hand, you just drop it on the floor. And so that cut of the movie, I hope, comes out someday, where it's just me dropping things.
You in front of a green screen.
Yeah.
Rachel Zegler was once positioned as one of Hollywood's rising stars, but recent reports suggest that her presence in major films is quietly being reduced or even erased entirely. While Disney hasn't officially announced her removal from Snow White, the signs are becoming clear that studios are making deliberate moves to distance themselves from her, and it all seems to start with Snow White. From the beginning, Disney's Snow White has been a troubled production, plagued by budget overruns and relentless backlash over changes to the classic story. However, one of the biggest red flags came when Disney ordered extensive reshoots, which led many to believe the studio was scrambling to salvage the film before its release. Zegler herself revealed in a recent interview on Jimmy Kimmel Live that her scenes with the 7 dwarfs had to be filmed 3 separate times. First, she acted alongside human stand-ins, then with puppets for certain dwarfs, and finally with CGI replacements. This level of reshooting is highly unusual, especially for a film that was supposed to be finished over a year ago. The decision to repeatedly alter how the dwarfs were portrayed suggests Disney was completely unprepared and had to experiment with different approaches, wasting millions of dollars in the process. But the situation goes beyond just technical challenges. If Disney had been fully confident in Zegler's role, they wouldn't have invested millions in reshooting scenes that were already completed. Extensive reshoots often indicate that a studio is unhappy with a film's direction, and some insiders believe this is part of a broader effort to minimize Zegler's presence without outright firing her. Why not just cut her entirely? Removing her would likely stir even more negative press for a film already surrounded by controversy. Instead, it seems Disney may be quietly scaling back her screen time, shifting focus to other characters, and using CGI and editing to downplay her role. If this is true, it would be one of the most drastic attempts in recent memory to fix a movie before its release. Snow White isn't the only project where Zegler is being sidelined. After starring in The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, many assumed she would continue to be a central figure in the franchise. The movie's ending left the door open for a direct sequel featuring her character, Lucy Gray Baird. However, rather than pursuing her story, Lionsgate chose to skip ahead in the timeline by over 40 years, effectively leaving her character behind. Officially, this decision was made because the new Hunger Games book by Suzanne Collins takes place later in the timeline, but the reality is that Hollywood doesn't let profitable lead characters go unless there's a reason. If The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had been a major success and Zegler had proven herself to be a box office draw, Lionsgate likely would have found a way to continue her story. Instead, the decision to move forward with sequels that leave her character behind signals that Lionsgate doesn't see value in keeping Zegler around. In essence, rather than risk another potential box office failure, they've quietly moved on from her. This pattern is becoming clear. Hollywood isn't loudly firing Rachel Zegler, but it is definitely moving on. Disney's reshoots appear to be scaling back her role in Snow White, and Lionsgate has opted to skip over her entirely for the next Hunger Games film. This isn't just about creative choices, it's a sign that studios no longer see her as a viable box office draw. While some in the media continue to promote her as a rising star, the actual decisions being made behind the scenes tell a different story. The backlash against Snow White has been relentless, and Disney is fully aware of the trouble on its hands. With a budget exceeding $300 million, if the film fails at the box office, it could become yet another massive loss in a string of recent Disney flops. By downplaying Zegler's role, Disney may be trying to distance itself from the controversy and salvage what's left of the movie's reputation. Similarly, Lionsgate's decision to erase her character from the Hunger Games sequel further suggests that Zegler is losing favor in Hollywood. If studios believed she could carry a franchise, she would still be at the forefront of these major projects. Instead, The industry appears to be slowly and quietly removing her from the spotlight. While Zegler may still have upcoming roles in smaller projects like Y2K and Spellbound, her status as a leading actress in major franchises seems to be fading fast. With Snow White still months away from release, this may be just the beginning of Hollywood's quiet rejection of Rachel Zegler.
I'm going to run out of time to review the Snow White movie, so I'm going to, Evelyn, skip straight into that. Disney, as you know, has quietly released now the remake of its classic Snow White cartoon from 1937. Quietly, because the remake star Rachel Zegler had signalled this would be totally woke, and it didn't go down well. She said there would be none of this being woken up by a kiss from a prince. Here she is.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
There were reportedly not even going to be dwarfs either. Rainbow people instead. I thought it was a fan protest. And even the word dwarfs isn't mentioned in this remake. The film has people saying, don't mock sleepy as a neurological condition. And dopey, is it really dopey? That'd be rude. Reviews are out now. The Australians reviewer gives it just 1 star out of 5. Evelyn Ray, are you surprised?
All I can say, Andrew, is that she'll be very thankful that there wasn't a prince to wake her up so that she can see all the reviews about the movie that she's been in. But, you know, they're actually saying that this is potentially Disney's biggest flop. I think they've spent over $300 million. Like you said,
No.
I think they did a whole movie and the reviews were that bad they had to redo it, and even their redo has completely and utterly failed. Although, you know what's interesting, Andrew, it got, I think, 2.1 rating on IMDb, which is less than what the Little Mermaid live action remake made. But I suspect what they're going to do is exactly what they did for the Little Mermaid remake, which was say that, you know what, all of the negative reviews are just from all of the racists out there. They actually had different platforms adjusting the ratings and saying, you know what, I think this much of the ratings were from racists, so we're just going to delete them and give it this artificial reading. I suspect that's exactly what they're going to do. But I think there's a little bit of hope, Andrew. I don't know if you've heard, but we've just heard that for the first time in 2 decades, there's a new Disney Pixar animated series out there where they've put an openly Christian character in the series, and they've replaced it, or they've actually cut out of that same series a transgender plot line. So I wonder whether it took Disney to hit rock bottom to lose potentially $300 million for them to bring back what every parent across the world wants, which is child-friendly, Christian value, good entertainment, things for kids again. That's all everybody wants. And so hopefully this flops so hard that they finally learn their lesson.
Will they, James?
Well, Andrew, woke is a poison apple and Disney have had a big bite of it. This movie should be called, they should call this movie Snow Woke and the 7 Pronouns. It's so bad, if you were to watch this movie on an aeroplane, Andrew, you'd walk out.
Rachel Zegler's role in Snow White was supposed to be her big break, but instead, it has turned into one of Disney's most significant PR disasters in recent years. She didn't just alienate fans. She sparked a whirlwind of controversy, forcing Disney to quietly scale back her role. But what led to this turn of events? The answer lies in a perfect storm of bad PR, political controversy, and a string of box office failures. From the start, Snow White was already a controversial project, but Zegler's actions only intensified the backlash. Instead of celebrating the iconic opportunity to play such a beloved character, she openly mocked the original 1937 film. In a 2022 interview with Extra TV, Zegler criticized Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs for focusing too much on romance, dismissing the prince as a stalker, and claiming that her version of Snow White would be a fearless leader rather than someone waiting for love. These remarks enraged Disney fans, many of whom saw her comments as disrespectful not only to the classic film but to the fairy tale itself. The backlash only deepened when it was revealed that the 7 Dwarfs would be replaced with CGI characters instead of real actors. Zegler also stirred more controversy by complaining about her role, claiming that if she had to stand in a dress for 18-hour shoots, she should be paid for every hour. This fueled perceptions that she was entitled and out of touch, rather than grateful for the opportunity. Things worsened when she took a more political stance, attacking Donald Trump voters after the 2024 election, saying they should never know peace. Her comments, posted to her 2.3 million followers, sparked another wave of backlash, with conservatives and moderates vowing to boycott Snow White. Despite issuing an apology, the damage had already been done. Behind the scenes, Disney executives were reportedly furious over her behavior. Insiders revealed that they had considered removing Zegler from the project back in 2022, but ultimately decided to proceed with her. However, following her string of controversies, Disney was forced to reshoot major portions of the movie, leading to speculation that they were scaling back her screen time. Executives are now reportedly working to limit Zegler's presence in the marketing campaign to avoid further controversy. The film's red carpet premiere will reportedly have no media access, meaning Zegler won't be able to answer questions that could exacerbate the situation. This level of damage control suggests that Disney views her as a liability, but it's too late to completely remove her from the film. In addition to her PR issues, Zegler has also struggled in terms of box office performance. Hollywood studios base decisions on financial performance, and every movie Zegler has starred in has either flopped or underperformed. Her big break came in West Side Story 2021, directed by Steven Spielberg. While the film received critical acclaim, it underperformed at the box office, grossing just $76 million worldwide against a $100 million budget. Her next major role was in Shazam! Fury of the Gods 2023, where she played a supporting character. That film fared even worse, making only $132 million on a $125 million budget, a total failure for a superhero film. Zegler then starred in Y2K, an indie disaster comedy that performed poorly, failing to even recoup a third of its modest budget. However, the biggest blow to her career came with The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, 2023. Lionsgate expected the movie to make between $500 million and $1 billion, but it only grossed $349 million worldwide. With movie studios typically needing 2.5 times the total budget to break even, the film lost money. As a result, Lionsgate quietly abandoned plans for a direct sequel featuring Zegler's character, Lucy Gray Baird. Instead, the next Hunger Games film will take place 40 years later, effectively erasing her from the franchise. At this point, Zegler has no upcoming major projects. Studios are no longer rushing to cast her, and the industry has stopped treating her as a rising star. Between her PR disasters, political controversies, and lackluster box office performance, it's clear that Hollywood is moving on from Rachel Zegler. Disney is distancing itself from her in the Snow White marketing campaign. Lionsgate has dropped her from the Hunger Games franchise, and she currently has no future roles lined up. While Zegler still has a strong social media following, it's clear that studios are no longer willing to take a risk on her. She has alienated multiple demographics, from Disney fans to conservatives to even some progressives who feel she is too outspoken. Rather than carefully navigating controversy, she continued making inflammatory statements, and now Hollywood is quietly erasing her from the spotlight.
This is the same woman who posted on Instagram after the election. I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred, leaning us toward a world I do not want to live in, leaning us toward a world that will be hard to raise my daughter in. P.S. There's no daughter. Leaning us toward a world that will force her to have a baby she doesn't want. There's no daughter and there's no daughter's baby. Leaning us toward a world that is fearful. This law should not have been, and it certainly should not have been by so many votes. I echo Ethel Kane's statement more than anything. May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Then she discusses the deep, deep sickness in this country. There is no help, no counsel in any of them. And she also attacked Twitter and Elon and finished it all with fuck Donald Trump. So it's one of the reasons why she's not like the ideal choice for the lead role in Sweet Snow White, and why many people are still, not to mention all the terrible things she said about, including, well, let me just play the one of the ones that got her in trouble when she ripped on Snow White back in 2022, SOT 38.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Okay.
By the way, I'm insulted because
replaces
she
Donald Trump.
assumed the gender of her future child. I don't think that's right.
Good point.
Well,
good point.
I mean, what also confounds me, I mean, hot take, so don't drag me in the comments, but these super liberal pro-abortion women like Rachel Zegler, they're always single and alone. I'm like, I think you're safe, actually. I think you're fine. You know what I'm saying? So
at least she's pretty. Most of the women saying like, I'm putting on the chastity belt. It's like, you're good. You don't.
You've got purple hair and 10 nose rings. You're good.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole. So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump. So I attacked her, and then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like I went too far, but it wasn't sincere. And my team, my helpful team, pulled this SOT from December 2023, in which, I mean, I would say she leans into her role as both victim and heroine. Listen.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see. I never wanted to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. When I tell you that it's hard, I just mean to be inside my brain. And I'm there 24/7. I can't get out of it.
As a huge Disney fan like all of you, this is the biggest dream come true I could possibly imagine for myself. Thank you all for making it possible and being excited.
Rachel, this is your second film.
I know.
How do you describe that experience?
Oh, it's so weird and like not okay. No pun intended. Lightning struck twice for me. I feel like the luckiest girl in the world.
It is just ridiculous. I can't believe this is my life. I can't every day.
17 years old, a junior in high school. You send in this casting tape, and then you're cast as Maria.
I got it. I'm like looking around, and there's this huge poster of my face, and I'm like, who is that? I still can't process any of it.
I am the most grateful person alive, but I'm also keeping it
hard to do what we do and to make movies, but I love it so much because I get to see you guys. And I'm really, really thankful that so many of you have been with us for 3 summers, and if you were here for 2 or just back for this one, you're part of such an important family to me, and this has been such a hard, wonderful journey, and I'm so thankful to have been on it with you all. So thank you.
Beyond Rachel Zegler's controversial involvement, Snow White is quickly shaping up to be one of Disney's biggest failures in years. The studio has already spent over $300 million on the film, with costs ballooning due to extensive reshoots, bloated CGI effects, and struggling marketing efforts. For the movie to break even, it would need to gross at least $1 billion worldwide. However, Disney executives reportedly lack confidence in its ability to hit that mark. In fact, the movie has barely been promoted, and advanced ticket sales only started 2 weeks before its release, a sign that Disney is bracing for failure. The initial Snow White trailer was met with immediate backlash, receiving over 1 million dislikes on YouTube, indicating that fans overwhelmingly rejected Disney's changes. Viewers voiced their anger over Zegler's casting, the removal of the classic 7 dwarfs, and significant story rewrites. The backlash became so severe that Disney removed dislikes from the trailer, a tactic they've used in the past to suppress negative feedback. Fans have not forgotten Zegler's dismissive comments about the original film, and her political statements have only added fuel to the fire. At this point, it's clear that the audience has turned against the film entirely. If Snow White fails to hit $1 billion, it could signal the end of Disney's live-action remake trend. The studio has already faced multiple box office flops in recent years, including The Marvels, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and Wish. Another financial disaster could force Disney to rethink its entire strategy. The real question now is whether Disney will even give Snow White a full theatrical release, or quietly dump it on Disney Plus to avoid further embarrassment. Given the minimal marketing efforts and the restricted red carpet premiere, it's possible that Disney already knows the film is doomed. For Zegler, this may be the end of her Hollywood career. She has no upcoming roles lined up, and the Hunger Games franchise has moved on without her. Snow White might have been her last shot at box office success, but if this film flops, studios will have little reason to cast her again. It's clear that Disney is in full damage control mode, with Zegler at the center of it all. Her role was reportedly reduced during reshoots, her public appearances are being limited, and the studio is distancing itself from her as much as possible. With the Hunger Games moving on without her and no new projects in the pipeline, it appears that Hollywood has quietly moved on from Zegler. Her past films have flopped, and if Snow White fails, it could mark the end of her career. Disney is bracing for disaster, with a $300 million budget, massive backlash, and a weak marketing campaign all pointing to one conclusion. They know this movie is doomed. So, is this the final nail in the coffin for Rachel Zegler's career? Will Snow White bomb? Let me know in the comments, like and subscribe for more updates, and I'll see you in the next video.